You ready for an episode?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Got about 8 seconds to say something. Here we go.
All right, everybody. Welcome to
Long Haul Marriage.
We are doing our marriage series, part 2. Jamie, welcome back, baby.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So in the last episode, we talked about our legacy and why we're so happy we stayed, we didn't quit, and all the stuff we love about being married. But we said it was not without its bumpy road along the way, and that's to say the least. Shoot, man. So anyway, lots to get into, but we wanted to talk about today that first year. You know, people have maybe heard us refer to some of those, rocky times in the first year of our marriage. And this is well before 10 years in when we lost our son, our 2-year-old Corbin. We'll come back to that. What I want to do first is just go into those first years of marriage and just how incredibly tough it was. Because I believe the value in doing this is 2 things. One is we can talk about the mistakes we made and what we learned and how we rectified some of those mistakes, but found healing from good night, all kinds of crap that we brought into the marriage. But also it's going to give hope, I think, to those couples. Well, I know to those couples who think they are beyond repair. Like they're going through it right now and they think, Brian and Jamie, theirs wasn't this bad. And I would say, man, I'll put money on that. I'll bet you on that. It was bad. So yeah, I think what I want to do today is turn it over to you, babe, and let you talk about that first year. And not just the first year, who knows even as far as the time frame, how long it actually took us to crawl out of that. But I know it went south pretty quickly. And so talk about just what you remember from that time, how it was, and then, I'll jump in as well. So Go ahead.
Yeah, this is a little harder, I think, to go back and remember. It was a really tough time, but I don't think we can talk about where we are now without going back to that, We both got married straight out of college, so we both met at Abilene Christian, and you graduated a year before me. So I think I was just up until that point, pretty Pollyanna. I love people. I'm pretty strong at relationships. I'm pretty amicable, agreeable, whatever you want to call me. You live with college roommates. That's one thing. But it was both of our first marriage, of course. And so, man, I think we were both realizing that's a whole new level of knowing someone.
Yeah. First time for sure for us to live with someone day in, day out of the opposite sex. And that, we'd had roommates, like you said, in college. And I grew up with a brother and a sister, but I lived in the same room with the brother off and on throughout my, upbringing. But it was the first time for sure that you had to make that adjustment of living with this human being that is very different than you. And you start seeing, that's when the patterns emerge. You start seeing how they are and what they do. The routine at bedtime that shocked me. Like, wow, you do the same thing in the same order every night. Which turns out that's actually really helpful. But that was, anyway. So yeah,
and
go ahead.
Honestly, if I had to go back and try to think, okay, how did it go south so quickly? What were those fights and arguments even about? I have 0% idea. I could not even make something up right now. But for whatever reason, we dated. And yeah, I think we had some, we probably had some fights and some arguments, even while we were dating.
Very, very few though. Honestly.
Not many. But then I just remember, on our honeymoon and then right after, like, how are we going to navigate this, like living life together for the rest of our lives? Like already we're having trouble. And so I remember when we, specifically, this was maybe our second apartment. Was it Ivor Canyon? Was that our second apartment?
That was our
first apartment.
That's
okay.
the first one.
Okay.
Seafoam green.
Yeah. Okay. So I couldn't remember if that or the timbers or whatever.
That was the second one.
Okay. So let's go back to seafoam green carpet. We lived in some apartments over by the airport, so lots of airplanes would fly by. Our argument and all-night fighting happened during that season. That's when it kind of started. So that was the first year. And I just remember thinking, how could something so right go so wrong?
Yeah.
And like, I think maybe I've married the wrong person.
Yeah.
I don't know what that even means, but I just knew the way that we were living, I could not sustain that. I was going to be dead.
Yeah.
My spirit was crushed. I was killing you, you know. We just both were, it was horrible. So I just remember that little apartment. I would go out. It was
When you
that
say you were killing me, give me more on that. Tell people more what you mean.
Well, okay. So some of this, I think we learned later
Uh-huh.
through Shanti Feldhahn's little book, but I felt like, when we were at Abilene Christian, you were super confident slash what I would say cocky
Hmm.
because you were really, really good at a lot of things. And you were good looking and you had a great personality and no one was going to stop you. And I felt like you probably could have had like your pick of the litter, And so you were
I got my
super
pick of the litter.
so
I
I
got her.
know. I know.
Yeah.
So I think because of that confidence, when we would start to fight, I would think, you know what? I'm going to take him down a few notches because if I don't, no one will. Obviously, everyone in his world has always told him that he's the best at this or that and, elevated him. Well, I'm going to be the one that's going to teach him it's not all about him. And he's not the one that's always right. And so I just consistently, I felt like cut your knees out from under you on purpose.
Yeah.
If I'm not going to be the one that just follows him around and, makes him act like he's the king of the world,
Yeah.
I'm going to show him a thing or two because if I don't teach it to him, no one's going to. So what I was doing was disrespect, 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 and just not doing myself any favors because all that did was cause you to be angrier or on the defense. And it just was this horrible cycle of bad, bad fighting.
Yeah. When when I talk to men about anger, which we'll come back to because I thought I was killing you and I was crushing your spirit. And we both thought we had made a mistake. Literally, I thought, man, I made a mistake. We've married, we shouldn't have done this. It's not going well. Back to the respect thing, because respect is such a profound need of men. When we're not getting respect or feeling respected, I always say we're malfunctioning correctly because we need respect. But make no mistake, that malfunctioning, it's not godly. It is horrific. It's not sustainable. It's sinful. It's not godly. Whatever you want to say, it's not good. But without that respect, a man is not going to function correctly. Honestly, in those first years, I don't think I was acting respectable. And we can come back to that. But one thing I want to say too, it's interesting when things start going south, you do see this side. And I remember almost wanting to blow the whistle. Like everybody thinks she's so sweet. You were this amiable, loving, just sweet, love everybody. And man, people love you and they're drawn to you. You're relational and you're funny and you were so, oh my gosh, just soft and pretty and feminine and all that. But then I saw this, oh my gosh, who's this freaking witch coming out, in our fights. And she goes for the jugular. And so that's a big, I think, aha. We don't know who, as Stanley Harwas says in his book, Resident Aliens, we never know whom we marry. We just think we do, and even if we first, he says, paraphrasing, marry the right person, give it a minute and he or she will change because marriage being the enormous thing it is, means we are not the same person after we've entered it. The primary problem then is learning how to love the stranger to whom you find yourself married. What's interesting is because of family of origin, so the way you were raised, the way the Phillips family was, and the way the Hackney family was, we were so different. Mm-hmm. And we can come in and unpack that. I think that would be helpful to talk about those differences. But I wasn't thinking I want to get to know you and value those differences and celebrate those differences or even tolerate. It's like, no, they're weird. They're wrong. It's crazy. So you were an alien, a stranger, but there was no interest in me getting to know that and value that. I thought I had to correct it. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't you say?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's kind of how I felt too. And it was interesting because things came out in me that I had no idea were even in there myself. Like I'd never been pushed to the limit in such a way that that would ever need to come out in me. So I would respond in such a way because I was so hurt, so disheartened, just like what am I going to do? I mean, I was just without hope. I was hopeless. So things would come out of me in response to you in
Mhm.
fights that I'm like, who even is that girl?
Yeah.
That girl has never come out to play before. Like, what is wrong with me? And I just kept thinking, how people would say, we bring out the best in each other. I'm like, okay, we're the opposite.
Yeah.
We bring out the worst in each other,
Yeah.
which once you kind of start to realize what marriage is or what it can be, it by very definition is going to be the thing that does draw out the worst in each other because you see each other like nobody else sees you, and you walk through things together that nobody else will ever have to walk through that closely with. So it took a while, a long time. But I think what we realized is if we would allow that to happen, allow that worst to come out and go, that is in me. That girl is in there. When she's pushed to the limit, that is what comes out of me.
Mhm.
And how am I going to allow that to refine me and like let it come to the top so it can be skimmed off and healed and worked through? But that takes a lot of time.
Tell the stew story.
Oh, man. Okay. So in our early years, I love to cook now.
No, like first year. You said early years.
Well, I'm just saying though, in our early
Oh,
years, like I did love to cook and I was so proud to try new things, but I didn't really know how to cook.
oh.
So it's embarrassing to say, like, I used to cook some mean hamburger helper meals.
And see, I think
Just
you were.
so
Well, I
horrible.
remember one of our first dates at ACU. You made that Parmesan
I
chicken, and
did
I
with that cheesy
that bread.
bread and
Oh, corn, cream corn.
yeah.
I still literally, I can. I mean, I can taste that right now. I can see
Yeah.
the plate.
I know, I tried so
Oh my
hard.
gosh, babe! It
So
was so. I
I
so I
thought
think you're an amazing
so
cook.
one night, and it may have been fall, I don't know, but I thought, you know what? I'm gonna make stew.
Hmm.
I don't to this day, I don't even love stew, but something in me just was like, I'm gonna make stew. Probably somebody where I taught also made stew. And I was like, oh, that's a good idea. I'll do that Tuesday night. So I got home from teaching, worked all afternoon and evening making this yummy meal. And you walk in and you say, what's that smell? And I said, it's stew. And you go, I hate stew. And I'm like, he did not just say that.
Oh my
Like,
god!
I can't, like, even when I'm saying this,
I'm
I'm
so
so embarrassed.
sorry.
Whoever's listening, I'm sorry. He's
Oh.
not like this
And
anymore.
I'm saying, oh God,
I've
if
said
if you're
before,
listening, please, that's the
don't do that.
stupidest thing you could ever do.
This is the
Oh
show
my
about what not to
gosh.
do. I think
Ugh.
back to that and I think we joked, I think last time about how you not having a filter,
Yeah, yeah, there you
you,
go.
you do have way more of a filter than them. Like who would ever to your worst enemy say,
Right,
what is that stew? I hate stew.
right, yeah.
So I
Mm.
don't know if, in that moment you thought you knew I hated stew. Why would you do this? Like you're,
There was a little of that. I remember, like, I don't like stew, and you doing it was this. I felt like you were, as you should have been, but I'm going to exert, you don't control me. You're not my dad, whatever. And I'm going to make whatever I want to make. And so it felt like a little slap in the face, like, wow, you're not listening or you don't care. You don't love me because I hate this and you're going to make it. But
but in
that was all a narrative I told
in
myself.
my mind, what I thought was, okay, I've heard him mention before he didn't like stew. I bet his mom didn't really know how to make stew. I'm about to show him that stew can be good. Well, that evening ended with me throwing down the spatula or the spoon and running off to the bedroom and slamming the door
Yeah.
and crying myself to sleep.
And there was no
It was
recovery. And,
horrible.
and yeah, it's bad. And if I did come in and try to say I'm sorry, which I did, but it's like, no, it's too late, dude. You're going to pay. And you should have. I mean, I should have. So it's like, yeah, there were thrown things. I remember, I said before, I think in the little teaser, throwing jewelry out of a window, literally out of a third-story apartment window, throwing your jewelry box out of the window in a fit of rage. What a crazy, crazy. I mean, this is abuse. There was verbal abuse. I would call you names. I won't say on this podcast, but if you can think of every single cuss word you can think of, string them all together, and then end with a B word at the end of it. It's disgusting. I'm not proud of that at all, but I want people to hear, putting my fist again through a picture, glass breaking, literally you throwing things at me. Thank God it never got in the physical realm. We both knew this was a
It was
disaster
bad news.
and we were heading for divorce wasn't an option for you and for me. And here we are 33 years later, thank
Mhm.
God. But it became an option. And again, I've said it's like I'm going to end up literally like dead or in jail if we keep going this way. So I'm going to go back. So we talked about anger and respect and all that. But one of the things, and we're not going to unpack all the differences in the Phillips and the Hackney family, but family of origin is a big deal. And if you've never done this family circumplex model, where that's the old name, now I think in the Life Innovations tool, Prepare and Enrich, they call it the family and couple map. So there's this scale on the bottom. It's your connectedness. So it's on the far left, totally disconnected. And on the far right, you have overly connected. Okay. And then on the discipline scale, on the left, at the very top, you've got like no discipline at all, like total chaos, if you will, and then, or over flexible. And then at the very bottom, you have rigid, right? And so in the middle, you can see kind of in this bullseye range, this structured, connected. Like you've got some structure, not overly rigid, not too flexible, but structure when it comes to discipline. And then you're connected. You've got some autonomy, but you're connected to your family. You're not totally disengaged. I'm closer to the structured connected. Jamie and your family, you had the enmeshment going on. So overly connected family. And then this lack of discipline in a lot of areas, lots of structure, so more chaos. So the counselor literally used the term in our thing, chaotic enmeshment for your family. And mine had this, don't hear perfect at all, here on structured connected, but let's say it doesn't matter. Yes, there's a healthy range you can be in, but the fact that you were up in this top right and I was way over here on the kind of the more middle to bottom left, those are different planets. Like we're in different solar systems. So that's the deal. That difference made us think we were living with someone from outer space. Well, what's the problem with that? Well, in my family, there was a premium on being right because we had pride in my family. And we were critical and we made, if people made mistakes, we were perfect. We make straight A's. We do everything well and blah, 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 blah. So when we got into an argument and you're showing a different way or having a difference of opinion or whatever, that felt like you're attacking me saying I'm stupid. You're wrong. You're not smart. All the things. So these internal messages, and of course I'm going to get defensive and then I'm going to have to prove to you that I'm right. Man, I just remember so many times where I literally thought I've got to prove to you that you're wrong here. And now look, most things, 99% of things are subjective. There's not right or wrong. But let's say there was an objective truth, right? Well, I'm going to such lengths to prove to this now adversary, this enemy, that you're wrong instead of this teammate, this ally, this partner that I love. So at the end of the day, you'd go, okay, all right, you're right. And you're a blank hole, right? I mean, like, when was that? I hate you. And so talk about, you said we lived by an airport and planes would fly over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I remember, goodness, like it was yesterday, we lived, I don't remember, were we third floor?
Yeah.
I would go sit on our stairs and just watch those airplanes fly by. And I would think, my heart, my spirit was just crushed within me. And I would just watch those airplanes and think, I don't know where they're going. I don't care where they're going. I want to be on the airplane. I just wanted to be gone. But at the same time, that was so heart crushing to me because I didn't. Because underneath all of the hurt, underneath all of the yuck that we had created with each other, I knew I wanted to be with you. I loved you so much. And at the same time, after a big fight, I would think, I hate him. I hate him so much because I felt so hurt by you. So at the same time, I would look at every airplane and go, I don't even care. I would just bawl, just watching these airplanes, just cry and think, I just want to be on that airplane. I don't care where it's going. But then there was this conflict because I didn't really want to. Like if someone gave me money, I wouldn't have gone to the airport and fly out on some plane. I didn't really want to be gone. What I wanted to have safety and love and team feel in our marriage. And we were everything but that.
I was the same way. I knew when I would, let's say, come out of the fit of rage or the anger moment, the prideful moment, the angry moment, I would think, what just happened? And like, this isn't me. And by the way, I had grown up this positive, happy, fun, loving. I'd never been angry at all. So I didn't grow up getting in fights or being in trouble or all that. And it's like, what was happening here? When people talk about having an angry spouse, they talk about anger management. And I may have said this, or I say a lot. It's not about managing the anger. It's about finding the root cause of it and getting there so you can get rid of that so that you're not blowing it like that. So there was the family stuff, the pride, the narrative I told myself about having to be right and having to be perfect. So that's huge problem number one. But a second problem that was rearing its head, and I would say, and you're like going, like you couldn't remember. I can remember what was causing a lot of the fights because there was this huge insecurity in me. And you talked about this cockiness or confidence. And honestly, growing up, most of the time I was like that. But then something happened at college where I was with a girl, we broke up. And again, this is what was so insidious. And I, want everybody to really hear this. You think, oh, I broke up with them. I had moved on. So this shouldn't have been as painful or shouldn't have been so hurtful. But because once I had ended this relationship, all of my friends and people that I didn't even know started coming out of the woodwork telling me all that they had been knowing and finding out about my ex and how she was sleeping. And at the time, here I was literally a virgin, and she was caught in the guy's dorms. She was sleeping with the football team, and she was smoking weed and smoking cigarettes and getting in trouble at doing this, that, and the other. The problem was I knew nothing. It was humiliating. It was a devastating blow. And so it's what I call the betrayal wound. So when we've been cheated on, I realize the listeners now, probably 90% of people find themselves, yep, that happened to me. But it's not just, wow, that hurt. That was a betrayal. It's the lie you tell yourself because of that. Something's wrong with me or they wouldn't have done it. And so if that becomes this embedded narrative in your heart, it's not about this thought that's conscious. It's just this limiting belief that goes on subconscious. Well, then I'm trying to protect against that. I'm trying to guard against that with every interaction. If she did that to me, Jamie could too. So wait, who you looking at? Who you talking to? Where have you been? It's that, are you out screwing around on me? Am I going to lose you to someone else? And so what that looks like, the pathology of that betrayal wound, if unhealed, is I've got to control. I'm suspicious. I'm jealous. I've got to control you so you don't hurt me. So I want to control who you're friends with, who you like, who you talk to, where you're going, and all that. Now, you would think, gosh, he didn't become that guy. It was more veiled and it was more hidden. And so I was smoke screening everything because it felt embarrassing. I was literally ashamed. So you mix together this guy that I grew up being in my family with the betrayal wound, and you got a train wreck on your hands. And I was literally killing you. And look, were there things, because you're human and you're flawed? Yes. Were there things about you needed to change and you needed to figure out? And yes, but my anger became such a big deal that you got off scot-free basically because my anger was so big it became the thing. And the narrative became, Beauty and the Beast. I'm the beast and you're the beauty, and poor Jamie, and Brian's hurting her, which, yes, I'm saying that's all true, but it didn't do me any favors on the things that I felt like you needed to grow up and learn and evolve and change because my anger was so big. So bottom line is, I just said, here's this guy that grew up in the church, went to private Christian school, went to ACU, minored in Bible. I knew all this stuff, been in youth group, leader of the youth group, and blah, 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 blah. I had no idea what being filled with the Holy Spirit was all about. Last I checked, when you're full of crap, you can be filled with the Holy Spirit, or full of yourself, right? Full of pain, full of hurt, full of woundedness. And I just remember saying, God, I need help. I need you. And I cried out on that seafoam green carpet that after another brutal knockdown, drag out fight, 2:30 in the morning. And I just said, I need help. That was the beginning of the transformation. You have to be humbled. You can say humiliated. You have to be, I felt like I was buried, like covered up in the ground, but there was that seed that was going to grow up out of that. I had to be emptied of me so I could be filled with the Spirit of God. I called your dad, of all people, who should have wanted to hate me. And he gave me so much grace. Don Phillips, man, the graceful, loving Jesus in my life that said, I see something in you. I see the potential in you. I know who you can be. And he loved me. And he said, I believe in you. So I'm going to forgive you. But here, you need to call this man. He gave me the number of a counselor, and I called, set us up, and we started doing counseling.
Yeah.
And, thank God, I felt like, he was being kind and gentle and loving, but helping me look inside, look internal to all those hurts and those wounds, and become clean, become free of the shame, learn that wasn't about me, that was about them, and all the stuff. And then honestly, it was like, thank you, God, he's saying things to her that I've been saying, but she couldn't hear them from me. you know and so we started growing, we started doing our work, our internal work, our separate work, and then growing together, doing the marriage work. Literally, I always tell people, I don't have to see a parting of the Red Sea or walking on water. Like, I have had a miracle done in my life and in our marriage. It was not smooth sailing on up into the right trajectory. It was a big old roller coaster, ups and downs and ins and outs, and again, rocky road. But that was the beginning. So the stake in the ground moment that said, man, I need help. And that was if you want to say repentance, the be transformed by the renewing of your mind. I had to say in my mind, I know I need help and I want to figure this stuff out. Walter Wangren Jr. in a book called As for Me and My House. I don't even know if it's still in print, but I was reading this book very vulnerably and candidly, just kind of raw, about doing damage to his wife and crushing her spirit. Bottom line is, once he finally realized, man, this woman's cold and she's turned her back to me and she doesn't love me. And look what I've done. Look what I've created. He said once he had his eyes open and the repentance was there, it took him 3 years to win his wife back, basically. Because, okay, so you put down the gun and you're not shooting anymore, but she's still in ICU. She's still wounded. And she can't just, look at you. Oh, you're so sweet and I love you and you're great. No, I had crushed your spirit and I'd hurt you. And maybe you're numb. Maybe you have ill feelings and there is hatred and resentment. And so we had to crawl out of that hole. So I had to continue on this path with no reciprocal, if you will. So talk about that. Talk about how long it took you to where you actually could trust me or want to open up to me again.
Well, it's hard. I'm not great with remembering timelines and how long it took. I felt like it took a long time. But at the same time, I feel like we've had so many good years since then that's just so in the rearview mirror. But you can't forget about it. It's ingrained. But I do remember reading something, and I think it was in that same book, As for Me in My House, and him just saying that sometimes the hurt is so deep that it's hard to do it, whatever it is, to do it for that person. So, to compliment you or to serve you in whatever way that I could. There were times where if I just felt like my spirit was so crushed that I could not do it for you, he said, do it for the marriage. And so you picture a marriage is you and your spouse, but there's this third thing that is the marriage.
You're making a triangle. Yeah.
And so if you can't get it from the gut and do it for him, do it for the marriage. And something in you that pulls more out of you because you feel like, okay, well, I have a dog in that fight. So maybe it's a selfish way to look at it. But to me, I just think it sometimes made it more doable where I could, when I was like, oh, that's the last thing I want to do for him. But you know what, dadgummit, I'm going to do it for the marriage. And that helped us, I think, crawl out when nothing else would have helped, you know? And then once you kind of crawl out of that and you're like, okay, I see something fruitful that came from that, you know? It just, the spiral kind of went from going down into the ground, going a little bit up. And, you have enough of those good days and times that you string together. And then you're like, wow, it's been a while,
Yeah.
and then we'd have another, knockdown, drag out. And I'd feel like, okay, wow, that was like 4 steps forward and 20 steps back. What the heck, It can be so frustrating and so grinding and so like, oh, I can't do this anymore. But I think the part of us that was so stubborn, that kept us fighting so much is actually the very thing that has also helped keep us in the fight, and not quit, so that we have fought our way through to the better days that, man, we wouldn't trade this time for anything. But I'm sure there were so millions of times that both of us thought, man, this is just too hard. It's too brutal.
I remember thinking it wasn't 3 years, but it took about maybe a year and a half. And that's, man, to quote, win you back and feel like there's respect and that you want affection, you want intimacy. Then you feel like, oh, I've got to be perfect. Because when you go and go and go and then you blow it, it's like, oh my gosh. And then the kitchen sink came back. And that's where maybe from some of your PTSD, from me or from the wounding or whatever, it would just go, and I'm thinking, wait, whoa, why is it going back here? But it felt like, now you're going for the throat again. And it's like, I remember us thinking, we'll never get out because we've had so much progress, but then we go back. And let's say it's like if you've been, sober for 6 months, you used to be an alcoholic, you've been sober 6 months, and then you fall off that wagon. You just think, dang, dude, will we ever heal? Will we ever get through this? And I remembered when it was 3 steps forward and then, oh, it's just 2 steps back. And where I'm blowing it, but to less degree and less frequently. So, okay, that's a win, and it's like, and just slowly but surely, you just quit doing that stuff and just say, you know what, we're going to go to some new patterns. We're going to think new thoughts. Those lies that you've believed about yourself, those are gone. We've weeded out those lies of the enemy. And now you've got a truth that sets you free from that. That's the stronghold. The anatomy of a stronghold is the wounding and the message that comes along with it. So anyway, well, listen, this was probably enough as far as categorizing, those early years of woundedness, bringing our family of origin and all our baggage into our relationship, but then seeking help, doing the work, and allowing the Holy Spirit and the counselors to help, change our hearts. And so next time in part 3, what I want to do is fast forward to where we're actually not smooth sailing, but doing pretty well and growing and in partnership and in friendship. And now we're parents and we've got Chandler and we've got Christian. And then along comes number 3. And we're going to tell the Corbin story. Never had any issues with any of our kids, health issues. And now all of a sudden, number 3, we're just expecting normal, healthy baby boy, and surprise. But we'll talk about how God gave us his name. Gave you his name. We'll talk about our experience with him, his birth, his 2-year life, and the eventual loss of our son, Corbin, and then going through the grief years and knowing that 85% of couples divorce after losing children. And now we know why, right?
Yeah.
But
So y'all
again,
bring your Kleenexes. Good grief.
but thanks be to God, we made it through, and here we are again, 33 years later. So listen, babe, I love you,
I love
and
you too, babe.
so yeah, look forward to part 3, and we'll see you next time.
All righty.